Some students that are picking up tables and trying to, flip them over on kids. Like, it's like, well, when did this stuff start happening? Hey you guys, welcome to my channel, The Inspiring School Counselor. I hope you guys are having a great day. Today I actually want to do something different. I have my wonderful parents with me, and I want to actually start a new segment here on my channel, and it's not really going to be a long segment, but I just kind of wanted to interview different generations of, their encounters with school counselors, or at the time they may have been called guidance counselors. So we're going to just get, my parents' perspective of their dealings or, their run-ins with the school counselor, if they even had a run-in with them at all. So I'm excited to be doing this on my channel. And then hopefully we'll be able to, I'll also be able to interview others as well, so that you guys can kind of get an idea of the different perspectives of school counselors and how their roles have changed over the years. So I am so excited. If you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe, and also make sure you hit that notification bell so that you can be notified every time that I upload a video. All right, let's not prolong the time. Let's get into these questions. So I have Jennifer and I have Ronnie. So the first question I want to ask you guys is, what were your counselors called when you were in school? So you can talk on it from an elementary, middle, high school, or you can just group them all together. But what were they called when you were in school?
Well, when I look back at elementary school, we didn't have counselors then. We had our deans, you had our teachers, and the principal. Mm-hmm. You take the teachers maybe, and the principals, and maybe the dean. They was more like your counselors then.
Wow.
And the reason why I say that is because we went through a whole lot at that school, and especially being the first black family, being black kids, anything that we needed help with, and concerning anything emotional, making friends, anything like that, teachers always implemented their time. But other than that,
so go ahead.
Yeah, but in middle school now, you had your guidance counselors.
Okay.
Which, we did not see much. I don't think that those kids, they were able to be a part of that segment because of the fact, if you wasn't a terribly bad kid, counselors really wasn't a part of your life. And you rarely seen them.
Wow.
And that was back in also when you go to high school. Yeah. What about you?
Well, I want to say something about that. It's the fact that, what you said, that if you didn't really need a counselor, or you didn't request a counselor, you didn't know anything about a counselor. Counselor, basically what they were for people that seek them out. Like if you had problems in your classrooms, they will send you to a counselor. But other than that, if you were just going through school and everything was good, you pick your classes. We were able to pick our classes. I can remember that if you picked to be phase 3 or 4 or whatever. Okay. The thing about it is that nobody bothered you. You know what I'm saying? If you worked it out with your parents and everything was all good, you never had any problems. You didn't talk to a counselor. I very seldom. I think I remember having an encounter with a counselor maybe one time when they were talking a little bit about college, but during then we didn't really even get exposed to college. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we didn't even know anything about going to college. We saw different things, but we weren't given the option to prepare for college, so we really did not know.
So why do you think you weren't given why do you feel like you weren't given the option?
Because
as far as to
go to college.
Well, I guess I should say, because I know counselors were supposed to help you with that. So why do you think that?
I think it was a generation thing. I mean, even my family, you know what I'm saying? Like me and my brothers were really not exposed to college. but I know for a fact my uncle and him and his wife, my cousins went to school. You know what I'm saying? So they were prepared. So basically, they had more education, and they were prepared to go to college. Which my family, my first hand family, my mother and my father, they did not really prepare me and my brothers for college, to where my cousins, they were prepared and they were taught about college.
Yes.
So I think it just depends on where you're at, where you were, and who was inspiring you.
Yes. And you know what? There was two things that you guys had mentioned. Well, for one, how in elementary you didn't have any counselors.
Exactly.
And now when you look at in my generation, and then when you look at like your grandchildren generation, you find more that there are counselors in the elementary school setting. I know one of the things that you mentioned, that they were known as guidance counselors at some point.
Right.
Now that was a big thing. I know when I was in college to go to school to earn my master's in professional school counseling, is that they were trying to say, we're not guidance counselors. We are professional school counselors, helping you emotionally, not just emotionally, but academically, and also with your career in college. I can't even think of the word, but that's okay.
Listen, but listen to what they said. They're telling you that they're helping you with your academics and everything. That's a guidance. That's guiding you through your career.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I think that there's still not a lot of emphasis put on counselors, school counselors. I think they should be more involved. I think they should interact with each kid individually and let them know that they're there for them, and to expose them to the possibility of what they want to do with their life.
Yeah.
And not only that, you just had teachers, more involvement with teachers, smaller classrooms, and more involvement with teachers. But also, you had the teachers that interact with the parents a lot. Also, visiting the home, making sure that, that interaction between the parent and the teacher, really came secure for that child.
Yes.
Also, you had the principal that they really was one that really put forth the discipline to let the parents know that, look, we got you. Whatever is happening at home, we have you here.
Yeah.
So you didn't have a lot of emotional children.
Yes.
In those days, back in those days, because everybody, the neighborhood took care of each other, took care of those kids. Because if we did something, the neighbor seen it, the neighbor said, I'm gonna get you, and then I'm gonna take you to your mother, and then your mother gonna get you.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then if they see you down the street, it's like, oh no, we're gonna find out your parents.
Yeah.
And so everybody had a hand in whooping your behind.
Yeah.
And helping you emotionally with your disturbed kid, or with the problem that your kid had. Yeah. And the parents did not say, oh no, that he wouldn't do that, when you know that your kid would. Yeah. So that is a difference between, having those guidance counselors and not having them, because of the fact that the teachers were really involved. The principal, the deans were really involved with the parents. And then you had also, in the middle school, that they were still in our days the principal had a longer paddle for the kids. And you rarely seen. But I remember, even in my high school, I had one of my teacher gave me, and that was we was in grammar, English teacher. And she gave me my scholarship. I had a scholarship in English to go to any school of my choice. She was the one that talked to me about it. Yeah. We didn't have a guidance counselor to go to, even though they probably was prevalent, like my husband was saying, but we didn't know. Yeah. It was the teacher that said, look, this is what I'm doing. Yeah. And this is what you need to do with your life.
And I think too, when you're looking at counselors, I know you had mentioned something where, basically the counselors was just there for those kids that were mentally disturbed or had some behavioral type of issues. And so you guys didn't really have to worry about that, because you guys basically knew that, hey,
right.
If you act up at school, you're going to get it from the neighbor.
Yeah.
All the way down till you get to your mama.
But that's the thing too, is that you did not, if there was a problem with a child, you didn't know it. you know, in the school, because it was taken care of between the teacher, the principal, in the neighborhood, and the parent. You didn't, they didn't, you know, every now and then you had one child, but that was taken care of by the teacher and by the principal and by the dean and by the parent.
Yeah, but the main reason why I want to bring that up about, you know, the counselor handling the kids with the problems is because I know many times, and I was actually talking to somebody before, is they said that they didn't, you know, go to the counselor because they thought the counselor was just there to handle those kids that had those emotional disturbances and problems like that. And it's something how, you know, counselors were, you know, basically in her eyes only known as dealing with those type of kids, but not looked upon as helping you with college or career or academics or anything like that. And so when I look at, and she was around you all's age, and so when I look at that, I mean, it just goes to show you the differences, even when, you know, me being in school and having some dealings with my school counselor, which was not that much either, you know, but it was more than I could say for you all's generation. But it's just being able to see those differences like that. You know, how I understood it as, okay, I knew that my counselor wasn't just there to help those students with issues and problems, but I could also go to them for college, any type of college and career questions that I may have.
And so, too, I think they stood out more. By the time you was going to school, they stood out more. And they made an emphasis on, more on the counselor. When we was going, like I said, there was none. And by the time we got to high school, by the time we got to middle school, they didn't have the emphasis there. The emphasis on, if you was bad, the principal had the long paddle. And we knew all the kids that was bad. That was going to start the problems, and boom, we already knew, oh, he's going to, he's getting ready to get it. But you did not, the counselors did not handle that when it came down to those type of kids. Now, when it comes down to, I say the emotional, like I said, the emotional kids, not the ones that was really bad. Now, that was the principal. That was the deans, you know, because they run around with the paddles. But, you know, when it comes down to, like you said, the education for some that, like, we didn't, you know that it was available, but you had a lot of them that dealt with some.
Well, let me ask you this, though. If you think a counselor was really, the job of a counselor was really to advise the students, do you think, how many counselors are there for like a high school, like a middle school with 6th, 7th, 8th grade? Do you think one counselor could counsel all those kids?
No. So, and that's one of the main things that we run into is that, like, for instance, now please forgive me for all my school counselors and school counselors to be out there, because I actually forgot the ratio. But I think for one counselor, you can have about 300 kids.
Wow.
You know, but even with that, that's a lot for one counselor.
Still a lot.
You know, when I look at the school that I'm at, you know, being at a primary school, the only counselor, and I have to, you know, look after about almost 300 kids. And I think it's like 288 to 300 kids.
That's a lot.
And still yet being able, you don't do it
in the period of
in the period of the year that you're there. But you just think, no one counselor, I mean, you have little fires that you're putting out basically all day. You know, a little issue rises up here, and you know, maybe one student's having some behavior issues, another student, you know, is trying to call your name down the hallway because, you know, they're having some issues with their academics, and so they need help with organizational skills. And then on top of that, if you are a school counselor that teach lessons, you got to worry about that too. And that's not even counting the non-school counseling things that you got to do, like, you know, doing not bus duty, but car rider duty. Like, that's one of the things I had to do. Or, you know, handling, you know, signing in students. I know some school counselors, they actually have to, you know, when new kids come in, they have to handle all the paperwork and stuff like that. So I think that that's one of the things that, and still, I believe it's going to get better as long as we are advocating for the school counselor in their roles. But, you know, there is a lot of kids to just one counselor. And that's why in high school, depending on how big your high school is, now I know I went to a high school, we had 4 counselors. but we have like maybe 1,000 kids. But still, yet if you divide that up between 4, whatever, however much that is, it's still a lot of kids to keep up with. But I mean, it all has to do with, you know, also the funding, you know, as far as can a school, you know, handle another, as far as funding and being able to pay another school counselor to come in. Because I know, like I've even heard where I worked at that, you know, you might get cut. School counselors, you know, they might get cut if they're not because they're not seen as essential in certain areas. So, you know, that's why I always say, if you are a school counselor watching this, or school counselors to advocate for your role, do your time, you know, do your use of time. Let them know how big of a difference that you're making at your school.
But I just like to say this too, is that, you know, with the teachers, without our era coming up, is that with the teachers and the students, and as it grew from 10 kids in a class, 20 kids in a class, to 28 kids, to 30 kids, you know, that was a lot on the teacher.
Yeah.
Because now the teacher is not having to be able to teach properly those kids that have emotional problems or that have issues with learning.
Yeah.
You know, they're having to, you know, to stop what they're doing just to discipline another.
Yes.
And that's where it's essential. And I think that adding that guiding counselor, or adding your role to the class or to that budget, to say, look, it's only helping that teacher to better train and to better teach that child, and not take away from those that really want to learn.
And that's why I really love at the school where I'm at, because they really, you know, like you said, you know, that you can have that one child, that teacher, that math teacher, or that, you know, elementary teacher has that one child, and that child's having a meltdown, the whole class stops.
That's right.
And that's why I'm glad that, you know, we are, as school counselors, and we are advocating for ourselves, but not just that, you know, people are actually seeing the roles that we play. That you don't have, that teacher doesn't have to just sit there and deal with that, but call the school counselor, let them know that you having some issues. I know that's what they do at my school. Hey, I have a kid that's kind of having a meltdown. Can you come? And then I can go and come. But once again, it runs into, I'm the only school counselor. What if you have 3 kids having a meltdown at one time in 2 or 3 different locations? So you got a lot going on. But I do want to bring up this one question. I think you guys already answered, did you know you had a school counselor? We already talked about that. The next one was, what is a school counselor to you?
Wow.
So what is your definition? If somebody came up to you and was like, well, what is a school counselor? What would you say based off the knowledge that you were able to gain from when you were in school until now, I guess, if that makes sense?
Right now, a school counselor is someone that aids the teacher and aids to help, you know, students of all walks of life, that whatever it is that's going on, whether it's education or whether it's emotional, is that they're there for that support and to help guide.
Yeah. I think guidance counselor that I can see back when I was in school basically was to guide you, if you knew about the guidance counselor, because I think you pretty much had already knew where you're going to be at. You know, we had, you know, kids that were in phase 2, which are with special education. They knew they were in that class, and the kids that when they picked their other class, they were there. So basically, the counselor, and then when you were a trouble kid back then, you got dealt with the dean. So it wasn't about, you know, they really didn't focus on mental issues and different things like that back then as they do now. So I think that's the guidance counselor really had it really easy back then. You know what I'm saying? Because basically the kids that came to them for help was the ones that they helped. And it's basically the ones that came to them already had an idea of what they want to do, but they just had a little bit of tweeting, you know what I'm saying? Or which college should I go to, or what classes should I take to get to this class, to this college? And I think that's the difference. And then and now, where now they're much more involved in behaviors now, and I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, and let me tell you, and that's so true, because as time is going by and on, and even I can say this, you know, when I was in school, like I said, you didn't really hear about I know really you didn't hear a whole bunch about behaviors and stuff when they were growing up. But even when I was in school, there were just certain things you just didn't do. You know, sitting in the classroom with your teacher. But now that I'm a school counselor and I'm at the school that I'm at, I've had encounters with students that are grabbing scissors and stabbing kids. Some students that are picking up tables and trying to, you know, flip them over on kids. Like, it's like, well, when did this stuff start happening? When did this stuff start taking place? And like I told you guys, soon, once I can get all my thoughts together concerning being a school counselor and handling behaviors, I would love to talk to you guys about how I was able to handle those different situations as a school counselor. But, you know, even that, you got things where some people, you know, or some school counselors, or I would say even some principals are afraid to even allow their school counselors to do certain things, or maybe the principal is afraid to allow, you know, to take on some certain situations because, you know, well, if you decide to hold this kid, you're afraid that you might go to jail. There might be a lawsuit that's taken out. So I think there's a lot of different things that are in play now when dealing with kids with behaviors and how horrible it's gotten, you know, and how kids have been acting now. But that's a whole nother video. But but I think I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to share.
Oh no, I think this is awesome. You know what you're doing and advocating for counseling, because like I said, looking at the problems and the younger generation that are having more kids and, you know, the different things that they're getting into, and the child is not asking to be born in it, but they are. Yeah. And they are carrying the results of the parent. Yes. And they don't know what to do with all those emotions. They don't. They are confused. But when you talk to one, you think they actually know, but they're just mimicking their environment. They're mimicking their parents, or they're mimicking someone in their life to make them feel or to do the things that they do. And someone has to be there, and the teacher can't always do it. And I can't even say always. They can't with the amount of kids that they have to try to help. Yeah. So you all have to be there. The guidance counselors need to be there in order to help guide and help hear things out to make it better for your, you know, for your level of staying at the school, to be a part of ensuring that they are doing the things that they need to do, you know, and you're being the support of it. Yes.
Thank you guys. Well, that is awesome. I thank my parents so much for being a part of this, because I just knew that I've never ran into this on YouTube where, you know, you're giving perspectives of generations of how they interacted with their school counselors, if there was even an interaction at all. But I wanted to bring this because I think it's just so essential, you know, to just be able to show those different ideas and those different views of, you know, a school counselor's role and how it needs to become better, how to make it better so that we can impact each generation, you know, as time begins to go on. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know that I did. I'm so excited once again that my parents was able to be a part of this. If you guys have any questions that just arose in your mind below, or that you would like for me to kind of touch on, please let me know. And we'll just, like I said, start a conversation. I thank you guys so much for once again watching and coming to my channel, The Inspiring School Counselor. If you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe, and also make sure you hit that notification bell so that you can be notified every time that I upload a video. Stay tuned for another generation's perspective. All right, I'll see you guys next time.